Our next presenter grew up in the Canal Zone in Panama. I know you all have his bio, so I will just touch on a few highlights. But grew up in the Canal Zone in Panama. Served in Nebraska, Department of Corrections as a counselor, a unit manager, a deputy warden, a warden, and the director of the Nebraska Department of Corrections. He also served as the commissioner of Massachusetts Department of Corrections until he accepted the position to become the Virginia Department of Corrections in 2010. He has numerous awards, but what I think is really so great is that his support for reentry. He's here every time we call and says, could you please come and speak for us? His office has a focus on improving reentry for offenders in the Commonwealth. Please welcome the Director of the Virginia Department of Corrections.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you all hear me? Yes. Without that device, that mic. Well, I just want to thank Juanita for having me back to speak. I'm surprised that she keeps on asking me to come back. And I'm wondering if it's whether or not she doesn't know anyone else. You'll see that can address this issue, because if she doesn't, I can certainly introduce her to someone, because I know a few folks, so we can talk about that. But I just want to say to the members of the panel that just concluded that I really appreciate your comments, and especially the returning citizens and the family of the returning citizens. I think sometimes it takes a degree of courage to come out and sit down and put your story out there. And so I really appreciate your doing so. So this afternoon, morning and afternoon, I'm going to speak with you about this issue on a more global scale. Not focusing necessarily on what the professionals can do, because I think this problem is so huge. This is a really big problem, and there are many different facets to it, many sides to it. And I believe that there's a lot that professionals can do to help to reduce the generations of incarceration. But professionals, as do the DOC, comes into this challenge really on the back end. Way before the profession gets a chance often to do anything, something has gone awry. The problem has already presented itself. And so, broadly, I pose the question, what is the United States? And when I say US, I mean, what is Congress and the major policymakers doing? What's society doing? Local societies and also on a large scale to address this issue. Are families doing all that they can or should be doing to address this issue of crime and punishment, of disproportionality? Are the criminal justice professionals doing all they can? Because it begins in the criminal justice field with law enforcement, with policing, where they choose police, how they police, arrest, prosecution, adjudication, many steps along the way, and the decisions that those professionals are making in the criminal justice system can serve to make a big difference in terms of outcome. This presentation I'm going to provide this afternoon is largely influenced by Brian Stevenson. You may have seen Brian Stevenson recently on 60 Minutes with Oprah. And who saw it? Sure. A few. He is the individual who is responsible for the creation of the museum that's in Alabama on lynching. And so I just recently was in a presentation that he gave, and he really influenced some of my thinking in terms of this issue. And so some of the comments I made are going to be reflective of positions that he promotes. Also, my presentation is going to be largely influenced by the research that was done by Bruce Weston, Dr. Bruce Western, who is a sociologist at Harvard. While in Massachusetts, I had an opportunity to spend time at Harvard, right down the road, with Dr. Western and others, thinking and talking about how we do better, how we manage this major challenge that we're given, this major public trust that we have to manage. So, as the chief said, in the Department of Corrections, we like to talk about being in the business of helping people to be better. And I tell staff, somewhat joking but seriously, that we have a very well-written mission statement and a very well-written vision statement. And I know they're well-written because I was largely involved in writing them. Well, not alone. I had a team of probably a dozen people. We went through a whole process to get to that point. But not too many have memorized the vision and the mission statement. And we didn't expect them to. But I tell folks all the time that all they need to remember that sums up what the vision and the mission statement talks about. All they need to remember is that we are in the business of helping people to be better. That's what it comes down to. And when you help people to get better, they can make better choices. They can make better decisions. You have equipped them with skills. You have addressed their deficits. Now, there's no perfection here, but every step, every opportunity that we get, we try to be better at helping people to be better. Reentry is our business. And I'll make an argument why reentry must be our business. 94% of the people incarcerated today in Virginia will eventually be released. That number is actually up from 90% just a few years ago. Virginia is actually tougher than most other states in the United States. For the rest of the country, that number hovers around 97 to 98%. But because of the way the laws in Virginia are structured, 94% of the people are going home today, but that's an improvement over about 5-6 years ago. There are approximately 39,000 state responsible offenders in Virginia's prisons and state responsible in jails. That is, they should be in our prisons, they qualify to be in our prisons, but because of capacity issues and contractual issues for work release and so forth, we have about 9,000 in jails, many of whom will never put foot in a facility operated by the DOC. Approximately 1/3 of those incarcerated in Virginia are released annually. That number turns over by 1/3 annually. And that's why we must focus on helping people do better. That's why we must work hard to promote change, because people are coming out in droves. They're not being put away and forgotten like most people envision and most people would like to some degree. They're coming home. And so how we deal with them makes all the difference in the world. How we prepare them to return home makes all the difference in the world. That's why I like to differentiate between long-term versus short-term public safety. So short-term public safety is what we get with incapacitation. We prevent escapes. We prevent folks from being out there committing further crimes and so forth. But it's short-term. And I said it earlier, most are coming home. 94% are coming home now. What we want to focus on is long-term public safety. The kind of public safety that comes about with change, changing individuals. And I'm not going to speak too much about the VA DOC, I just want to make a few comments about that, because I want to speak on a global issue as to some challenges we are facing and about the disproportionality of crime and punishment in this country. But I just want to say that our focus in the VADOC is on long-term public safety that comes about with addressing the deficits that the offenders present with. It comes about providing them with skills and tools, treatment, programming. And we are doing this not only at the lower levels, we are now doing this today at the highest levels, our Supermax prison. We now have schooling, we have programming, etc., and people are out every day in treatment in a Supermax prison, something that was not happening prior to 2011. So the system is transitioning. Re-entry is our business, and it begins with the number of people we are facing. It's a challenge. 2.3 million people are locked up today in the United States in jails and prisons. And those are the people mostly, or at least 95% of those, are the ones that we got to focus on reintegrating successfully back into society. So, in the United States, more than 700,000 people went home or were released in 2017. It is projected that 60% were rearrested the first year after release. Think of that. 60% were rearrested. Why? It is projected that 49% will recidivate